Hello, everyone. Welcome to Webtoon Book Club. Today's story, Dear X, an actual full-length story this time. So, the story starts with a little girl walking out of her home apartment thing. Well, she walks out the door and finds that her father has pushed her mother down the stairs, thus killing her. Good start. This little girl is our main character. So the father eventually gets remarried to another lady with a little bit more money. And the little girl starts to gain the trust of her new stepbrother. Gaining his trust so much that she actually makes him trust her more than his own mother. And the mother doesn't care too much for the girl. And the girl tries to get her way in the house by utilizing methods of blackmail and manipulation, which the mother tries to take control back by trying to teach her a lesson by dunking her into a sink filled with water. Yeah. And the stepbrother ends up walking in on this and pretty much loses any trust for his mother from that point forward. Then we move to their school life, where the girl is orchestrating what is essentially a loan shark business. But the actions are being carried out by the stepbrother and another kid. She's handling all the work in the shadows. But the loan shark business gets found out, and one of the kids that is more actively doing the work is the one that gets in trouble and eventually suspended. So another girl ends up seeing a cell phone of the main character in her bag. So this other girl picks up the cell phone and sees the message is from the kid who got suspended, and it's about the loan sharking stuff. So she tries to find a way to bust her for doing loan sharking stuff in school. But eventually this other girl, but our main character works to ruin her life by having her stepbrother get close to her, then recording her saying some nasty stuff about her closer friends, and then the voice recording comes out and breaks her relation with her friends. Her friends want nothing to do with this other girl. Then our main character starts stealing stuff from everybody else and then shoving it in this other girl's locker, trying to pin her that she stole everybody's things, which works. And even orchestrating to try and get some consoling from another teacher who is actually engaged with their homeroom teacher, and manages to somehow get the timing right that this girl trying to bust the main character comes across the conversation to make it sound like the teacher is more sexually involved with the main character, and it's just a misunderstanding of words and yada yada, to where she tries to expose that, but when the homeroom teacher walks in, just isn't having it, and the main character says, well, no, that's not what that was. You only heard that part, which was not what you're thinking it is. But this other girl is very adamant to try and pin that down, which gets the homeroom teacher angry, and the homeroom teacher slaps this other girl. And this other girl gets very shunned and shamed, and eventually has to move to another school. Skip ahead a bit to our main character is working at a convenience store and is trying to avoid her abusive dad, but her dad found her and wants money from her so he can gamble and drink it away. So she comes up with the plan to make it seem like that she's being stalked, when in reality it's just her stepbrother following her around, which he's aware of this plan as well. So she tries to get closer with her boss, telling her boss that she's being followed by a stalker. So he tries to do what he can to protect her, quote unquote, to the point where eventually the dad shows up at her apartment demanding money from her. And then the boss eventually, after probably weeks of scheming, sees this, comes into her apartment, beats the crap out of the dad till he gets knocked out. But the girl tries to convince him that, oh no, you murdered him. Well, he's not dead. So the convenience store worker tries to... So she tells him to try and get away and she'll explain everything and whatever. But then when her dad starts to wake back up, she finishes him off. And then ends up pinning it on the owner of the convenience store anyway. Then we skip ahead again, where while she was working at the store, she ended up getting caught by a acting recruiter or whatever, who offered her a job at the acting agency she runs, and so we skip ahead to where she took up that offer. So her to try and get ahead in her acting career, ends up getting close with one of the larger actors there, and eventually starts dating them, but is only using him to advance her own status. And eventually, when he is no longer of use to her, she basically comes up with this whole thing to basically ruin his life. And it works so well, and it destroys his life so much, that he ends up going and hanging himself. Yeah. So then we skip ahead again to where now she is in a relation with one of the richest people in the country, and he's worried about an heir or something. So what she tries to do is, he's a paranoid man, and she doesn't trust her all that much. For good reason, as the audience would think. So she comes up with this new plan and gets her stepbrother very drunk, and then ends up doing things with him, forcing him to get her pregnant. And then trying to play out the pregnancy as if it's the rich guy's kid. But when the stepbrother finds out that he has now been used by her, that he's now just been used as a pawn in her schemes, he's, of course, very upset about this, because he's been extremely loyal and trusting to her over these many years. And he would never have thought that she would just throw him to the side and use him for her advances. But she did. So he comes up with his own plan to try and take her down, while the rich guy pretty much knew everything she was doing. Because he's so paranoid that he has basically had eyes on her the entire time, including the assistant that he assigned to her to report everything she's doing back to him. And this is actually how the stepbrother found out, is because he overheard a conversation between her and her assistant on the phone. So he, while upset about her actions, agrees to go along with it because he can use her more than she can use him. So she then goes to a award show to accept some acting award. Wow. The stepbrother has orchestrated with a TV productionist or whatever, the guy who was originally the guy that was the kid that got in trouble back in school, and gathering together all the people that she has wronged that are still alive, that is, and basically putting on a TV special that exposes her for all of the wrongdoings she has ever done over the years. So, even so, the night she's earning an award for something, she's also being exposed for the horrible person that she is, which ends up tanking her career and her livelihood. The rich guy drops her, and she's shunned from the public spotlight, and I believe is also might face some legal repercussions, which she ends up fleeing to China to try and get away from all that. But sends one last letter to the stepbrother, where it's another time skip, and the note basically says that she's been spending the last some years living a peaceful life in China, raising a beautiful daughter that he will never be allowed to see, and she will never know of his existence. So the story ends with her having her life destroyed, but in the end still getting the last laugh. And things still going the way she would have wanted it to. And that's the end of Dear X. This story was hard to read through. It was tough to read through because the main character, is such a horrible person. And I think that is deliberate. I would hope that's deliberate because she certainly is not likable. You might feel bad for her situation at first because of the situation she's dealing with in her life as a child. But considering she takes her pain and then starts to basically shove it onto others, and then manipulating, blackmailing, and even murder, you end up finding that this is an extremely unlikable character. You are meant to hate this person. And that's fine. And the thing that kept me wanting to read was wanting to see her get her comeuppance. Was wanting to see when karma would finally swing back around and hit her. Just as for everything that she has done. Of course, the problem is, like, every time you think something could go wrong and she could finally get some retribution finally come her way, nope. Things just happen to work out in her favor by pure luck or by pure circumstance. It's a bit frustrating to that regard. And the story is just hard to get through because it's so dark. It's so depressing to an end. It's tough. But that's the only thing that will probably have you wanting to push through is seeing her to get her downfall. And then when she finally gets her downfall, it's extremely unsatisfying. Because, yeah, her life is ruined. She lost pretty much everything. But the author allowed her to have one last victory lap. And then end the story with that. Which, to me, is just completely unsatisfying. Like, you technically get what you've been waiting for, but she still gets her way in the end anyway. So it's just the most unsatisfying ending to a story, in my opinion. So, this story is a decent read. It's written very well. It is orchestrated very well. The art is pretty good. It's very good. Like, everything about this story is made as a good top-tier story. It's just that there are certain elements throughout it that kind of bring it down, just simply because it is so purposely made to be such a down-putting story. Because it surrounds a character that is just the most monstrous, dislikable person ever. But yeah, that's Dear X. Just, woof. Definitely a story I would say, if you can handle such, like, there are no positive emotions in this story. Like, if you can handle a story that has, like, basically no sense of positivity to it, then sure, try it out. Otherwise, I'd probably advise avoiding it. Because at the end of the day, you're probably going to end up in more despair than you probably would want. But, yeah, that's Dear X. Go to the description and vote on which story you would like me to talk about next, and I'll see you then. Goodbye.